Hello, everyone, and welcome to SBIFF Film Talk. My name's Mickey Duzdovich. I'm the senior programmer here at the festival, and tonight's film is State Street Serenade. Here is a trailer.
I was walking down State Street and I was like, wait a minute, there's guitar music coming from somewhere.
I started to hear this sound wafting through that second floor going, what is this? This is something special.
It was starting to become this iconic, hey, when you're in Santa Barbara, you ever hear that guy playing the guitar? Where is he?
I think if I were to define Bruce, it would be the Gypsy Kings meet Willie Nelson on the way to a punk rock show. You know, he's just, there's devil-may-care attitude, just crazy fun guitar work, as loud and brash as you can get it, but gorgeous music all at the same time.
Hello, guys. I'd like to welcome director Michael Love, and I'd also like to welcome the guitarist, the musician himself, Bruce Goldish. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey.
Good seeing you, Mickey.
Good to see you. So I'd like to begin by talking to you, Michael, a little bit about how this project came about. It's if people know your work, normally you're dealing with nature films. I've seen a lot of your nature films over the years, and I want to know a little bit about how this project came about.
Well, I was indeed in the middle of a big nature project about in the second year called Endangered in California, about 6 California species that have come back from the brink of extinction. And I was with my cameraman on State Street, and we're talking, and we hear Bruce playing. And he started to tell me, I've been hearing Bruce for years, and I love his music, and but I really didn't know anything about him at all. And my cameraman, Elliot Lowndes, did, and he told me the whole story about how a special permit was granted, and he said, we should make a movie about this. And so we dropped everything, and kept going afterwards, but we took a break from the other film and really started to make this. God, that was 3 years ago at least, wasn't it, Bruce?
Yeah.
And then time went by, and then we took another break and did some more work on it. And at that point, I told Bruce, I'm going to finish this film this year. And we did finish it this last year. So it was really a pleasure to work on and to get to know Bruce. And it's a wonderful Santa Barbara story, really a heartwarming story, and what a pleasure to get to know and hang out and work with Bruce.
Now, Bruce, what was it like having Michael coming to you and asking you that about doing this documentary? What were your thoughts going through your head?
Scary. Yeah, the camera, I just have to remember there's no camera there, pretend there's no camera there, and that made it better. But Michael and Elliot were so easy to work with and professional. Just when the camera wasn't really on me and I could just watch them work, it was, it's an art. It's amazing.
Now, Michael, you do something interesting with your opening and closing of the film. Can you talk a little bit about your thought process about opening it, driving into the parking lot, pulling right up to Bruce, and then leaving with the shot and closing out the film? Because you don't see that normally in filmmaking. Can you talk a little bit about your choice of bookending like that?
I guess the idea was, okay, how do we, I played with a few different openings for it. And then I thought, and we had a shot, we wanted to show a car driving in and discovering Bruce. And it just seemed like a really natural way to start, because it's so much a Santa Barbara story. So you start on State Street and all the State Street stuff is going on. And then you go with a car as if you're just someone else in on State Street, entering the parking lot, and here is this guy playing guitar. What is this story? And then we enter that story, and then pulling out with it just felt like a natural bookend. Elliot and I talked about it, and it just seemed like a perfect thing. And then he went out and got those gorgeous establishing shots of Santa Barbara at sunset, which were perfect closing. So it's one of those things that comes out in the editing room. You're looking for a good structure, a good bookend, and that just seemed to be the one for this film.
Now, speaking of the editing room, you edited the film yourself as well. Can you talk a little bit about the editing process for a film like this? And I'm sure you had to cut some things because you were probably pressed for time. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, editing is always, in a lot of ways, it's where the film gets made. And this is my editing room right here, actually behind me. And big projects like the one I'm doing right now are daunting. Bruce's story was relatively small in time. Initially we wanted it to be a 5-minute movie, then it became 10, and I think it ended up being over 20 minutes because the material was just there. We did an interview with Bruce, which really was about 4 years ago. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bruce. And that interview, he was so natural, and he told the story so well that I was able to use that as a structural device for the film and keep coming back to it and just going through it after transcribing it and figuring out, okay, how do we illustrate this story? And so many wonderful people came and were available for interviews. So it was a matter of just using that interview as the central axis along with his playing. And then from there, going off to the interviews and to him playing and to people in the street. I wanted to have as much of him playing guitar and the magic of people on State Street just falling under the spell of that echoing guitar music as possible. Plus those wonderful spontaneous events that happened there, many of which Bruce captured and we were able to put in the film.
Which was another question I was going to ask, is those events that happened, I was wondering if they were naturally there. Bruce, can you talk a little bit about those events that happened and people showing up and dancing and all those things that happen around you?
Sometimes I'll grab my phone and I'll prop it up on the railing next to me and just catch something out of the blue, and crazy stuff happens. Even though it might be midnight on a weeknight or something, but somebody might come with a fake rocket ship. That one's hard to explain, really. That one happened. People dancing. I don't know. Just spontaneous, cool stuff happens.
Yeah, I noticed towards the end that Michael, you make an appearance in there doing a little dancing yourself.
I do. Yes. I was actually, I love to dance, and I'm part of a local dance community. So I wanted to bring this whole bit, I wanted to fill the parking lot with dancers and have them just arrive and pop out of their cars and suddenly be this huge thing. But I just it never quite materialized. So that was a very small version of what we wanted to do. But yeah, it was really sweet because Shannon is there too, Bruce's
Yes.
wife, and it was just a way to celebrate Bruce and step forward. But the initial idea had been to fill, I was going Fellini here. I wanted to fill the entire parking lot with people in costumes and jumping out of their cars and dancing.
That's a film I would love to. That's a film I would love to see. If you ever get a chance to shoot that part, you can add it in there.
Yeah.
Would you mind talking a little bit about how you chose your subjects and how you researched and found all these people, and did you have some say in who he was going to talk to?
Oh, gave him some suggestions.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Bruce actually gave me the names of people that he thought would be good interviews for this, and then we approached people on the street and it's kind of what you do in a documentary, but I think almost all the major interviews were people that Bruce knew or that knew of him, and that were able to give us, you know, some of the deeper history of him playing there, like John Mui and Hal Milgram, who are just, you know, they're wonderful people in Santa Barbara who have a lot to do with the music scene and really know Bruce and know this story.
And I wanted it to be real, so that those are all of the ones that I suggested. They'd been by a lot. Like Hal Milgram I'll be playing there and I won't see anybody for hours, and then I'll see this little person walking from the other end of the parking lot, slowly approaching, and there's Hal with his big smile, and after a show at the Libero, or Lisa or John, that have been up a lot.
I remember hearing you coming out of the Granada, or even coming after parties at the film festival, coming into the parking lot, and you would be playing, and it's like, I am going to get this movie in the film festival. And so I'm really happy that happened, because I would see you so often during the film festival in that parking lot and hear you after the parties. So I think there's a lot of people who go to the film festival who are already familiar with your playing and the magic of what you do there.
Which actually leads me to wanting to thank you real fast, Bruce, for closing night. That was amazing, having you play out in front of the Arlington and leading everybody in. So thank you so much for doing that.
That was the best night.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So we really appreciate that one. I wanted to ask you about your guitar, Bruce. It has to have some history to it. That I've never seen a guitar with so withered and beat up a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about the history of your guitar?
I like to think of it as loved, but maybe
very much loved.
It's clumsy love. I bought it about 25 years ago, new, at the same store that Bob Dylan used to buy his strings in Minneapolis, and I didn't know about pick guard. Well, I haven't been trained formally, so I would hold the thing like this with my pinky finger, and over the years the pinky finger rubbed through, made a hole there and made a hole there and made a hole there, but it still sounded beautiful. So it's the ugliest guitar I have, but my favorite.
Well, it has character, so I truly appreciate that you have the love for that guitar. And I want to ask you, I saw that you have a paper taped on top of it, and it has a list. I was wondering what that list is. Is that the list of songs you're going to play?
Well, it's pretty much all the songs I know.
Okay.
If it's a parking lot night, I might play for 4 hours or 6 hours or something like that. So I play everything I got.
And how what's your favorite song to play in the parking lot?
Bunch of them now. They're mostly original ones.
Okay.
1,000 Years is a kind of a recent one that Michael used for the film, and had to learn that one for a wedding, and I'm so glad they made me, because that one's one of my favorites now.
Yeah, and talking about the music and stuff, since this is all about you, and the soundtrack for the film is a lot of your original music. Can you talk a little bit about having your music used as a soundtrack for a film?
Oh, it makes me feel great. The whole thing is humbling. Using my music, using this ugly face, the situation itself. I'm not even such a great guitar player. Just it's a cool story and situation. So I'm just lucky that Michael gave me the honor of shooting at me with that camera and let me play songs.
It's a privilege to tell that story. And when you have a great story to tell as a filmmaker, it's really a gift. So get to connect with someone and a bunch of people that I didn't know. You know, for most of the years between that film, I've been out in the high Sierras with bighorn sheep, or out on the islands filming Channel Island foxes, and you're out there. Sometimes it's Elliot and I, we don't see another person for a week. So it was really fun to do a story in town and to hang out with you and get to know Shannon and the kids, and it was a beautiful experience. Yeah.
Some of the
privilege.
And it just reminds me too that a lot of the originals I play, they fit into Santa Barbara because they were born in Santa Barbara, or it might be about it in a sense. There's Frankie the Barber. It's an instrumental, but it was about Frankie the Barber next to the Hotel Santa Barbara, who gave me a crazy haircut.
That's awesome. That's awesome that you have songs about people here in Santa Barbara. I remember my first time walking down State Street and hearing you. I was probably just going to UCSB, and it was just so amazing. It lit up Santa Barbara and really made me want to come to Santa Barbara. So it's quite amazing, and what you're doing is very, very authentic, and it's one of the most amazing parts of Santa Barbara. So I commend you on that, because I know it takes a lot of time to be out there. And Michael, I wanted to ask you, was there any troubles with shooting? Was it pretty straightforward? Did you run into any complications?
No, I'd say it was a pretty smooth shoot. We're kind of, it was really a streamlined crew. It was basically just Elliot and I and a couple interns that would help out. And, but we're a pretty well-oiled machine at this point. So I think the trickiest part was getting the audio right so that you would hear the magic of that echoing, cathedral sound that Bruce gets, but at the same time not be too invaded by the motorcycles and sirens and people yelling in the street. So it was, you wanted to have both qualities. So we had, I think, 4 microphones and different setups to try and emulate as well as we could the magic of that sound. That was challenging. But other than that, it was just fun to shoot. Elliot had a blast doing it, and we got some, I thought we got some nice moments there. And one of the things I wanted to talk about in terms of Bruce and the influence in this city is these journals that he sets out for people to write in, because there were so many wonderful things in those journals. I don't know, there must be 12 of them at least, Bruce.
Yeah.
And they're full. And they're just full of people saying, you changed my life, you changed my night, I was in pain, or I was, it's really touching. I started reading them thinking, okay, I'm going to use a few of these and maybe have actors read them. In the end, I didn't have actors read them because I think it would have been a little hokey. But there was so many moving things that at the end I had about 60 different Post-it notes sticking out of them. I was like, there's no way we're going to get to all of these. And it was really hard to choose the ones that we did choose. But it is a testimony, a very personal one, of how affected people have been by Bruce's music. And it's something he's just been doing with just on his own, out of the goodness of his heart, and really enriching the city by doing so.
And Bruce, you open in the documentary explaining how it all came to be, and how you just took a chance and were going to play for 10 minutes and thought you were only going to get 10 minutes. Looking back and where you are now with playing at the same location night after night, can you talk a little bit about how it feels to come from, oh, I'm just going to be here for 10 minutes, to going all the way through to having the city say, no, we can't do this anymore, to now you being back with, now legally being able to be there and do this?
It's otherworldly. I still just can't believe it. And the 10 minutes thing was, I just thought they were going to shut me down. I just thought if I can last 10 minutes, I'll call it a success. And it's been, I mean, if I look back, it's been thousands of hours, and just how long I've been allowed to be able to get away with it stuns me. Even now that I have the permit and I'm not an outlaw. No, really, when I was doing it for the almost up until they did that surprise permit to let me play there, I had to factor in things like, okay, I'm going to park my car here for a quick getaway and keep my eyes out for cops driving by. And actually, when the cops would come by, I'd be ready to be put in cuffs, but they'd go, Almost every time they'd just be real kind. And I'm also, it sets me back when I think of how long this has been going on, when somebody will come up to me while I'm playing and say, there'll be a 20-year-old, and they'll say, I've been listening to you since I was 4, since I was, because it's been like 14 years now.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing to have a following like that, and having them grow up in Santa Barbara and be listening to you all these years.
Well, I'm lucky Santa Barbara built that structure for me.
Yeah.
And I let people park there.
It's very kind of you. Michael, you touched on it a little bit, but with nature filmmaking, you spend a lot of hours waiting for the animals to show up and do what you need to capture. Can you talk a little bit about the transition of having somebody there that you know is there and you know what you can do, and just capturing it?
Love it. Love it. Yeah, you know, when you're waiting at a fox den for something to happen, or for pups, or yeah, it can be really trying. You know, you've got all the gear, you're all ready to roll. And the interview part of a project like that is the easy part. In the case of Bruce, we just had so much great material right from the beginning. As soon as we started shooting him and shooting State Street and the interviews, and then he had all these clips of people dancing, that funny guy on the unicycle, and just lots of great stuff. So it was, you know, it was instant gratification in that respect. When, you know, for nature filmmaking, especially this current project, we, you know, for example, to get fox pups out on the Channel Islands in their wild habitat, not by the tourist campgrounds, it took, I don't know, 5-6 trips camping out there, and waiting and waiting and waiting, and GoPro traps. Yeah, so this was a great pleasure to have a warm human being who showed up on time. Love it.
And can we talk a little bit about the stuff that you shot, Bruce? I'm sure there was even more stuff that you and Michael probably had to go through and decide which clips to use. Can you talk a little bit about the decision making on those clips that you chose, like the unicyclist and a few of the dancers and stuff like that?
Poor Michael, really. I think I sent you too much stuff. It's just when I started looking, okay, what do I got? And looking back over the years on the computer, there was a lot of it. And the guest book pages where he said, send me a few things that people have said, and rereading it, you know, it was there was a lot of it. And it was great. And thank God I had a good editor to send it to and do the real work.
Now, do you have in those journals that you put out for people, how many journals do you have, or do you still have one that you're just working on filling?
Oh, they're like pads. So there's probably about 15 of them. There's probably I don't know, 2,000-3,000 notes from people, and
that's amazing.
That vary from, you know, if somebody's had a lot to drink, it might just be he writes like this, and a little picture of me, or some very intense personal stories from people. And none of them, the crazy part, none of them bad. I mean, I would have thought somebody'd say, you know, in a note, none of them. It's just, it's a valuable thing to me. It gets to me. I like it when I look back.
Well, that's good to hear, and I'm glad people out there are so appreciative that they take the time to write to you in that journal.
Well, also I'll be if I do a typical like 5-hour session there, I won't see anybody I can go an hour or two without seeing a single human. Most people are downstairs, and a lot of times I'll be thinking, what am I doing? You know, people think you're an idiot here playing, and I might feel self-conscious, and then somebody will come up and say something or write something that it's like, no, I'm glad I came here.
And after you mentioned in the documentary, you did a 13-hour set once, just to break your record. How are you feeling the next day after that one?
A little stiff and elderly.
Do you know how many songs you ended up having to go through, or how many times you had to play through?
Absolutely have no idea.
Yeah, I had a feeling towards the end of that you probably lose track of what's going on.
I was a zombie, but actually while I'm doing it, I have energy. It's just when I stop, then everything turns to pudding.
Well, I have a favor to ask, Bruce. Is there any chance you might play us a quick song?
Well, if I only had a guitar handy.
Bravo.
Bravo.
Thank you so much for that, Bruce. Thank you for joining us tonight. Michael, thank you very much. I look forward to your next project. Hopefully we get to see it this year. Both of you stay safe out there.
Thanks,
and yeah, and please join us next week. We have The Believers with director Leah Bleach. So thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Thank you guys again.
Thank you, Mickey. That was really fun. I appreciate you taking the time doing that.
Yeah.
And thank you, Bruce.